Good evening, everyone. We're going to get ready to start our committee meeting. What we're here to do tonight is Craft and Tull has some, I think, some renderings, some things that they would like to present to the council, and they'll be offering explanations as they go. So at this time, I'll turn it over to you guys.
To be here today. We have some exciting graphics to share with you today. In terms of an agenda, we did want to update you. We've had several public meetings combined into what we have called 2 workshops. So we have some information from those sessions to share with you. And then, as the mayor said, we're going to jump right into the concept where we've developed it to this point, including some images, and then we'll wrap up with a listing of the spaces. That's the program. We have some cost information to share with you, and then also we've done a very preliminary. It's based on the building design as it is right now, but we've done a preliminary revenue and expense projection as we see the facility being used, and then of course we have plenty of time for questions and answers. And I'm also open if you would like to ask questions as we go through. That's also certainly fine with me. One of the exercises we did in our public forum, and we did this with, I think, 3 or 4 different groups under the label of public forum. We had the groups do a prioritization exercise where they could essentially vote for the different potential components for the Aquatic Center components, the different, you can read and see these faster than I can describe them. We also had a series basically of components that you would typically find inside of a community center, including meeting rooms all the way down to youth spaces. And so we compiled the data from the voting, and this is a very challenging graphic to read at the beginning of a meeting. But as you can see, we have the planning committee did scoring, as well as we combined all of our public sessions into the bottom 2 categories. And you again can read them faster than I can describe them, but we have public spaces. We have also the aquatic spaces on the right, public spaces on the left. And the important piece, just to help with the discussion, we did score these and weighted the scores. So when we handed out colored stickers, some stickers were worth 4 points, some were worth 3 points, some were worth 2. So ultimately it comes down, really what you want to look at are the weighted scores, and these takes us a little bit beyond the original data that was done in the study a few years back in terms of its web-based surveying. This is really just hearing directly from the public sessions. I circled the top 4 in each category by each of the different groups, so they're a little easier to pick out. But clearly, in terms of indoor spaces, from the planning committee, it was, you can see a cafe lounge. The high score was the gym and also the party room. And then we will look at what the planning committee did for the outdoor water spaces. It was the Zero Beach indoor competition, water slides and lazy rivers. And then you can see for the public now, interestingly, the public group was slanted a little bit, and I want to be politically correct that way, but we had a lot of supporters interested in the aquatic portion of the community center project. And so therefore you can see we had some really strong votes for the indoor competition pool, but we also had lots of leisure components. The lazy river, the water slides were also very important to those groups as well. And then the gymnasium and the party room in the case of the public groups for the indoor spaces. So that, along with the information from the survey that was done a number of years ago, has guided kind of the priorities that the planning committee has set forth as we move forward with the plans themselves. One of the other exercises that we did, and this was kind of our second group of public meetings, we asked everyone to also vote. It was separate meetings, but to talk about what architectural style they might like this facility to represent to the community. We know it's not a bank and it's not a strip mall, Is it a traditional kind of architecture representing more arches and brickwork and kind of history? We do a lot of these community centers that are lodge-based, very popular kind of theme. We want it to be like a lodge, almost like a ski lodge. Of course, we do a number of these facilities in parks, existing parks, and so a lot of them we kind of label or term in nature. And so it's natural products and things like that used on the exterior to the design. And then we still do lots of these that we would label modern. And so we had the groups do this, and again, we weighted the scores. And interestingly, as you can see, we ended up kind of tied between this modern and in nature. So you'll see some imagery later that kind of is working between those two different styles in terms of potential architecture for the space. And then when we jump to the project concepts, as you already know, we're focusing on the old airport site, and in particular looking at how we can use the old Axiom warehouse facility. And I know when it's described as a warehouse, it's important to remember that there's a fair amount of space that's warehouse in this complex, but there's also a lot of space that's in very good shape. I know some of you went on the tour a month or so ago. The entire building is air conditioned and heated. It's in very good shape. Mechanical systems are in excellent shape. The only thing you might say about it is that it does look like a warehouse in terms of the exterior. So you'll see some imagery where we're trying to change that look as we add on to the facility. So from a concept standpoint, because we have all this square footage that we can renovate and even or develop later, really the new construction is primarily the indoor aquatic center component and some of its support spaces. And as you can see already, the rest of the outdoor components are the outdoor water park. We've also envisioned potentially some type of drive. See if oh no, it's a screen, so my pointer won't work. I can do it this way, hopefully, if it's working today. No, it doesn't seem to be working either. I was going to use a cursor, but in any case, we're coming off. We've at least suggested, although there's been no planning of the rest of the airport property, we are suggesting potentially that you can come directly off of the existing roundabout that comes off of 6th Street. We might have a second roundabout and connect across, but that development is yet to be determined because, of course, as you already know, it's owned by the Chamber of Commerce and being developed by them. So we'll continue to work with them and see how they want to develop that, how it'll relate back to this project. We have added some additional, there is existing parking on this site, but we've added some additional parking so we can get the count up to about 250 spaces. And then to the east of the building, there is also a flat level area that can be used as grass parking. So if there is any tournament or large event that will require more than the 250 surface spaces, we have the ability to park additional cars on that portion of the property. For those who weren't on the tour but might have looked at the plans, this is level 1 and level 2 of the existing facility. The large space, the warehouse is to the south at the back of the building. There is 2 floors tucked in the volume of the building. So on the second level, there's a fair amount of office area in this facility, and then also on the ground floor. And again, generally speaking, it's air conditioned, it's got good lighting, most of the finishes are in excellent shape. So we would talk about doing a light level of renovation in this building to take advantage of the square footage. So as we've developed the plans, working with the planning committee, this building is still in the same orientation with north up. We've got a main entry at the top of the facility where the existing entry is now, so that's why we've added additional parking in front of the building. We actually have a canopy drop off that we're developing as part of the exterior architecture, so you can be dropped off under inclement weather. The ground floor is primarily all touched and renovated in this particular diagram. We're adding a community lounge, a youth lounge, our child watch, and our children's or kids lounge to the east side of the complex. We have 3 multi-purpose rooms on the ground floor, and those multi-purpose rooms are used for instructional classes. They can be used as meeting space as well, but generally speaking, they're used as instructional space for things like Pilates classes and ballroom dancing and activities like that. So those are right inside. We have done some demolition up front of the building so we can create a public lounge space with both views into the pool, but views into the other activity spaces as well. Those are right off the community lounge. And in the heart of the existing building, there's already a control desk. Generally in the community centers we design because you're always considered members of the community or considered, people in the community are considered members or have memberships to the facility. That's where you would come in and show your ID so you could then use the rest of the facility. As you move over to the west side of the building, we've located a cafe. That was something that was of interest both to the planning committee but also the public. And then just beyond that, that line is where we designate the new construction from the renovated area. That's our indoor pool, both the 8-lane pool and the indoor recreation pool. We also have an office, a guard office, and then a very large pool equipment room. That's an oversized pool equipment room only because it's serving not just the indoor pools, but also the outdoor pools as well. So that's all housed in one location, which is very efficient from a cost standpoint. When we come back inside the building, we have a couple of party rooms, which are tremendous revenue generators. On a Saturday and Sunday afternoon, they can be literally rented on the hour. You spend a half hour in the party room, you spend the other time out in the pool doing all kind of crazy stuff. As we move down through the building, we have then some additional locker rooms, men and women's locker rooms. We also have some family changing rooms. And then at the very bottom of the complex, we have another guard office for the outdoor pool, some storage rooms, and then a corner concession, which really is a seasonal concession stand. It looks both west and to the south. We've got some outdoor food court seating area there, but that's really for use of the outdoor facility. Again, it'll be just open for the 4 months of the year. The main space, which was the 2-story volume that's in the existing facility, is the gym space. And we have both a 2-lane, although these are extra wide lanes, so they're kind of 2-person lanes. We have a jogging track, walking track that goes all the way around, a series of 8 volleyball courts and 12 either pickleball or badminton courts. The space is well lit. It's got some natural light from skylights and also a clear story. We would drop curtains between those activity spaces so they could be used at different times by different users doing different activities, so you don't just have pickleballs or volleyballs going all over the space. But this is a very cost-effective component because really we're just putting a new floor in the space and some padding on the walls and putting in those drop curtains, but the structure, the lighting, the mechanical, everything else in that space is basically in good shape, really just would be painted. I'm going to have George from our team talk more in detail about the aquatic components, but I just wanted to move you guys upstairs. Again, coming up that center core where there's an existing elevator that works just fine. We have our public restrooms. There's a fair amount of square footage on the second level that at this moment in time, we are calling unassigned or unused. You don't have a program now in the community that would necessarily fill those spaces up. Based on current need and based on the survey and report that was done a few years back. And so in a sense, that's reserved area. One, we don't have to pay to improve it until you decide what you'd like to put in that space. We did want to do a little bit of work though, so we can create the offices for the staff that will be running the facility. And then we also did want to renovate down here. There's a pod of space on the south again, where it's meeting rooms currently, but we want to renovate those into 3 additional party rooms that actually have views looking out over the Outdoor Aquatic Center. The last component of this is the seating. It's at the very top. It's in kind of a blue or purple. We have 200 seats. Now that seating works, of course, great for any competitions that take place in the pool, but also if you're a parent for a Saturday swim lesson, you can certainly either be in the lounge downstairs and watch, or you can come up and sit in the seats and watch your child or children get swim lessons in the facility as well. So with that, I'm going to let George talk a little bit more in detail about well, this is just the two plans. We can come back to that if you have any questions. But I was going to have George talk a little bit about the actual pool components.
Good evening. Thanks for your time this evening. So as Eric mentioned, on the indoor pool, we have started with two separate bodies of water. So on the top there, we have an 8-lane, 25-yard competition pool. And then supplemented with that, we have an indoor leisure pool. And so the 8-lane, 25-yard competition pool would have capacity for regular lap swim. We're also showing 1 meter diving on this facility. It would be able to host high school swim meets, USA swim meets, especially when you couple that with the spectator seating. And then it also can be used as, general recreational water, not only, shallow water aerobics, deep water aerobics, the diving board for recreation, water walking, lap swim. So even though it is a lap pool, it does have a variety of functions. We would see this being a little bit cooler water since we do have the secondary pool. So probably in that 82 degree water, I would say. So it could also be used for the higher level swim lessons as well. On the leisure pool side, we wanted to complement the lap pool with something that had some more fun amenities. So right now we're showing at the bottom of the plan, you'll see a flat spot there with some features. So this is essentially a wet deck for little children's. It has some ground features, some vertical spray features. It has stairs down into the lap area where we have essentially open recreational water, but we were able to fix in or squeeze in two 25-yard lap lanes. So this would be important for warm water lap swimming for those who don't like the cooler pool. It also helps to support the 8-lane competition pool during swim meets. So now you have the ability to have two warm-up and cool-down lanes for those types of competitions. So that would definitely help bring some larger competitions in, having the ability to have the warm-up and cool-down lanes. But then it also provides a lot of capacity for swim lessons, water aerobics classes, water walking. And then we're also showing a current channel there in the bottom right. So this is essentially a moving water that is, similar to a lazy river, just on a condensed version for an indoor facility where we have moving water. So it's a great recreational amenity for the kids. But then in the morning time, it actually functions morning and evening, and non-recreational times it functions as fitness and therapy because you can have water walking against the current. I was at a facility just about a month ago of a pool that we designed in the state of Virginia that has a very similar program to this, but it has an indoor current channel. And at 6 a.m., there were 10 people walking against the current in the current channel from the second the pool opened at 6 a.m. So it's a great therapy and fitness use for that. We could also explore further, putting an elevated children's play structure into this pool. The one thing that is constraining us to have a true zero beach entry is just the amount of space and the slope requirements of a zero depth entry. We can definitely fit it on the outside, but on the inside, it is a little bit of a tighter footprint. So we have the 8-lane competition pool and then the shallow water leisure pool on the indoor facility. When we moved to the outdoor, we wanted to show something that the area does not really have in recreational water. And so we have 3 separate bodies of water. Starting at the top right, you'll see the tot pool. So this is meant for children under the age of 4. It has a couple of spray features, about 6 inches to a foot of water. So really a low-key pool for moms and dads with young children. On the main pool, you see in the middle, we have several different features. We have a zero beach entry that has spray features, those little dark dots that you see above the word zero there. Those are all different spray features. We also have a multi-level play structure, so similar to a wet playground that's in about 1 foot to 1.5 feet of water that has a couple of water slides off of it. Could have a tipping bucket on top that fills with water and dumps water every few minutes. We also have a floatable crossing activity. So this is floatable is anchored to the pool floor with a cargo net above that, is great for agility and fitness for kids. We're showing a climbing wall, a vortex, which is a circular moving water pool. And then we also have a tanning ledge. We have found here, just within the past few years, we have done a number of shallow water, 6 inches of water with waterproof lounge chairs. And so the lounge chairs actually sit in that 6 inches of water. And we find that it's just a great passive area for adults to lounge while their kids play. And then lastly, we have the lazy river down at the bottom left of the facility that's connected to a plunge pool. We're showing 3 water slides, 2 that drop into the plunge pool, 1 that drops in just to a fiberglass run out on the deck. We're also showing some lounge chairs, another sun deck, tanning ledge, shallow water area there on the end of the river for the lazy river, and then some bench seating inside the river for another passive area. Anytime that we design outdoor aquatic facilities, we want to make sure that we have ample capacity. And so we have that with the 3 separate bodies of water. We want to complement that with children's areas. And so we have not only the tot pool, but the zero depth entry. And then we also want thrill attractions. And so we've tried to accomplish that with the floatable activity, the climbing wall, as well as the water slides. And so we feel, that with the amount of water, that this facility can have a capacity of anywhere from, 400 to 500 people at one time. And then over the course of a day, if you turn over turn over the number of users a couple of times in a day, this facility could see upwards of 800 people on a given day throughout the summer. So just as important as the pools to help support the outdoor aquatics, you'll see, all of the perimeter seating, you'll see the perimeter shade structures. And so just as important as the water spaces are the deck area, shade, and tables to support that number of people that would be visiting the facility during the summertime, typically a Memorial Day to Labor Day season.
That was one question I was going to ask. I was assuming the little dash things around the pool are seating.
Yes, those are shown as lounge chairs.
That's not enough seating for 500 people.
That is correct. So we also have some cabanas down at the bottom. We have the large grassy area to the bottom left.
So people could bring their own chairs?
They could, and we could also show, we might also, instead of having the loungers, we might have, tables that would seat up to 8 people. And so each of the 3 larger umbrellas that you see, we have the larger pavilion on the top left, but the other 3 large umbrellas, those can each seat, can accommodate up to 4 8-person tables. So you can seat 32 people under each of those 3 larger shade structures. Mm-hmm. And so we, as a rule of thumb, we try to have 80% of max capacity for seating. Okay. And then we can complement that with just the open grassy areas.
And 500 people would fit in the pool at one time?
The technical capacity of the pools would allow for roughly that number. Okay. But what we typically find is that you have about 50% of the people in the water and 50% of the people out of the water at any given time.
And that's not counting the indoor pool?
That is correct. That is not counting the indoor pool. Yep. And Eric's going to take over and show some renderings of the indoor aquatics.
Yeah, so you can get this many people in the indoor pool. Not exactly, but in any case, you can get a lot of people in the indoor pool as well. And this is a view of the recreational components. It's just out. It's almost as though you're walking right out of the party rooms, right out into the space again. And you know, there's a floatable in the 8-lane pool because you know when it's not being used with lane lines, you can do that. We've suggested maybe if we can get it to fit a little bit of a play structure, but you know, we're trying to illustrate it, get the colors punched up, make it very exciting. This is all about generally branding and getting members excited about coming here, you know, every weekend, including those in January, which is always critical because that's when you really want to come out and swim. We've also done in these facilities, we branded them with not real palm trees, but artificial palm trees. We can do rock formations. There's a whole nother level of kind of exciting entourage is what we call it in the business that we can add to this space. Of course, on a day like this, that you can see the seating in this rendering up in the upper right-hand corner. You might have a few parents up there, but that seating is primarily when we look at the pool from the standpoint if it is being used by a swim club, perhaps a local high school's having a meet. You know, you can fill, again, 250 folks up there watching the activity. And generally under that situation, which might only be 20 to 25 events a year, they might be an all-day Saturday event. The indoor leisure space is typically not used when that's happening, but certainly whenever there's any practice going on, not competition, all of the other facilities in the indoor aquatic center can be used. It doesn't have to be shut down just because the swim team's using it. The nice feature of this is when you're up here, you're also looking out onto the outdoor pool deck, the outdoor complex as well. This is a view, it's kind of the drone view, so you can get an idea as we start to populate it with the cabanas and the seating that George just talked about. You can see all those chairs now under the umbrellas. And while we haven't filled it with 500 people, we do that primarily so you can see all the different components. But, you know, you try to imagine the activity, the number of young people standing on the stairs going up to the 3 different slides. And then, of course, folks on the green space, you know, sometimes it's even, you know, you can picnic in these facilities. There are just lots of different activities. Now, what you're seeing in terms of the building behind is the original west side and south side of the Axiom warehouse building. We're painting it to kind of brand it with the rest of the complex. And, of course, we are using your blue and yellow from your city logo and branding. We picked just a low level just to show if you were sitting on the grassy area, you can see all the different activities at ground level. And then we also, although it's kind of a dense image, we've got a lot of seating provided outside of the concession stand. So again, this area is not necessarily completely separated. It's kind of integrated, but we do generally just want a couple of different points that you can move back in. These are policy decisions, but of course, if you're eating food here, we don't typically want you to take your hot dogs out onto a floaty in the pool. And then in terms of, we didn't do a lot of imagery for the inside necessarily, but we did want to show you the basic scale of the back warehouse space when it's been converted to the gymnasium space. You can see the 2 walking, jogging lanes. You know, it's a wide open space. It really just needs to be painted and have a new flooring surface and some pads. And then we've shown some graphics just to make it a little bit more exciting in the drop-down curtains. But it is not very many communities have these kinds of indoor both play spaces, but of course also the number of tournaments you can host for volleyball and pickleball will be significant with this many indoor courts.
How about seating in there?
We didn't really provide seating necessarily, but I can tell you for tournament play, because of the spacing of the structure, we have more space between the courts than you would normally have. And that was just a function of where the columns came down and wanting to have safety distances for the players. So there's actually in a tournament situation, you're not going to have walking and jogging. So between using we can bring in tip and rolls and chairs for the team. So you could fill this up. And in fact, one of the responsibilities of the design team, it's a warehouse. It's by code, it's a warehouse space. Now we're turning it into an assembly space. So one of the things we've also had to do is cut into the exterior a whole series of new exits so we can handle a very large tournament here, both spectators and players, both. And then we did want to share you just some early ideas for the exterior. Again, these are the same 4 images that were kind of voted on in the public meetings. And again, it was kind of a tie between modern and in nature. So we're going to show you some ideas or thoughts of the initial exterior. Again, these are the first permutations of these. We are not finished with the design. We'll have a lot of time to work on the design if the project moves forward. But we did want to share just some basic ideas. Again, we are attaching to a warehouse building. So the first versions are kind of might be considered the modern versions. This is from the northwest, kind of looking in the southeast direction. You can see that the parking, the pool, you cannot see in these views. It's on the other side of the pool addition. But what you're really looking at is the second level, the upper level deck seating for the pool. That kind of comes over and creates a natural walking space, kind of an arbor running under the building. We've branded it in it's a metal skin. We branded it in your blue color. We have the very large 3 Cs, Conway Community Center. We wanted some level of branding. The one thing, and if any of you have driven out to the 6th Street roundabout, when you pull into that roundabout, driving south, the warehouse building as it is now sits up on a hill, and it's actually very prominent. So we wanted to take advantage of that and even clear out. What we've done is kind of clear out the trees and plant some new smaller trees. But the idea is you would see those CCCs as you pull into the complex as you approach it by car. And then we've got some brick on it, kind of again representing both modern but also features as they relate to the city. So this is this view. This is the canopy that we're drawing across the face of the building. We're putting brick at the base, but the colored panel system in those windows are the existing windows in the facility. So other than painting, we weren't spending a lot of budget money on changing that particular facade, at least in these early renderings of the project. We're creating the drop-off just because we know we have all age group of users that will come in and can be dropped off. Both the very young children that are going to go in for swim lessons and those who might be a little bit more senior. So that's undercover. We like that feature, but we're still taking advantage of the existing entry in the center of the facility. We then looked at another version. It's the very same angle. We wanted to start looking at some of the different uses of stone on the building. And it's not necessarily stone, but we'll call it stone. It's more of a masonry product. The color scheme is still the blue and the yellow. And we think this is also generally successful. But the skin color now is remaining pretty much light in terms of the front elevation. We have that kind of stone masonry product across the base, but again, we're using just a light paint to paint the building. Right now, the building is kind of a slightly dull yellow. I won't say it's dirty yellow, but it's kind of a tan yellow color right now. So just by painting it, it improves the look of the facility. And then we wanted to also kind of take a look at, if we thought about that in nature style of architecture, what that might look like. So instead of a brick product, we're looking at a stone product that's actually rough, much more boulder-like. Almost kind of like a fireplace in your own home. We've wrapped the metal panels are a faux wood system, so it doesn't rot over time, but it has this kind of very warm feel of bringing in wood into the color. And we've changed the basic painting to be a little bit darker taupe color, so it stands up a little bit better. We changed from yellow to blue, the CCC. We still wanted to use a little bit of your branded color on the exterior of the building. And again, you can see those from the 6th Street roundabout. So these are the early concepts. We've actually put them all on one slide. Although they're small, you can get a feel for them. The massing is represented by the plans, and so now we're just trying to kind of, in a sense, decorate or create the architectural skin, wrapping the building as much as we can. So we're happy to come back to those if you want to talk a little bit more about those. I did want to summarize overall the basic program and where the major spaces are and how they're being defined in the building. You'll see we have a series of building components, public spaces, meeting spaces, youth spaces. You can again read those coming all the way down. And then we've divided those into renovated construction and new construction. And so again, as I mentioned earlier, the new construction is primarily the Indoor Aquatic Center. This, by the way, this square footage does not include anything that's outdoors and related to the outdoor pool project. That's considered outdoor space. But ultimately, in the building, when you combine the new area, which is almost 23,000 square feet of new construction, there's about 118,000 square feet of then renovated space as well. So when you combine those together, you're ending up with a community center that has 140,000 plus gross square feet of space. And as I also mentioned before, on the second floor, we have almost 17,000 square feet of space that is yet to be defined in that space. So we're not spending to renovate it right now, but certainly it is it's a potential for future work in that space, whatever that might be, as designated by the council. The program summary, just a short program summary in terms of the big picture, the indoor pool, we have our leisure pool, and George went through all these descriptions. I won't read them to you. The outdoor pool has, of course, almost double the amount of water and double the activity spaces. And then indoor, we have our 8 volleyball, 12 pickleball. We have 5 party rooms, which is very rare in a community center. We have the indoor track, 3 multi-purpose rooms, and then again, that large piece of unused future space. We've done preliminary analysis. We were given, as architects, the architectural team was given a total project budget, that would be turnkey budget, of $25 million. And so we looked at 2 different models. Without the property cost of the Axiom warehouse, and then with that cost deducted from the $25 million. And we have some other, what we call soft cost or project cost, including wanting to have a contingency for construction. That's a post-construction contingency. We have the architect's engineering fees. We have FF&E, which is furnishings, fixtures, and equipment. We have an allowance for that, $1 million on the no property version analysis. The numbers come down a little bit on the other side in that category because we're spending, instead of spending money on spaces that require equipment or designing, that money is going to the cost of the actual purchase of the facility. And then we have a line item of just miscellaneous costs. Again, it's kind of another contingency, but that includes everything from any legal fees, the cost of purchasing the property. It can be also testing fees. There are a whole series of other costs that they're very generally small, but we have that budget as well. But as you can see, in terms of what a contractor would bid or build the project for in the no property cost model is $21 million, and that drops to $18,775,000 if we include the cost of the property. The outdoor aquatics number is fixed. It's the same in both models. The indoor components are the same. So the investment in outdoor aquatics and indoor aquatics, as you can see, is almost $14 million when you add those together. And then we have that 101,000 square feet of space potentially that could be renovated. And that really the difference, we have about $71 a square foot to renovate the facility in the no property cost model, and we have only about $50 a square foot. And this is where this will be stretched a little thin, but we have about $5 million to renovate the gymnasium space, put in those locker rooms, but we'll be just doing less renovation in that version because of the cost of the property being deducted at the top of the line. The last thing before we take questions, we have done a very preliminary revision of the revenue and expense projections for the facility. It's not parallel with what was done 6 years ago. That was a different facility in terms of the amount of outdoor aquatics, the amount of indoor aquatics, and really even the amount of indoor space. But it is very interesting. That model had an 80% recovery rate, which generally in municipal community centers is a very good recovery rate, knowing that there is some cost to outside of that in terms of the expenses of operating it. The other thing that's changed from when this model was done about 6 years ago is, of course, we've had 6 years of inflation. So everything from utilities to commodities in these models all cost more. And then on top of that, there have been two other pieces that have changed. One, we're seeing a unusual, and of course you've all read about it and it's been on the news, we're seeing an escalation in salaries, and in particular the part-time salaries. So the model originally from 6 years ago, a part-time lifeguard for the outdoor pool was between $8 and $9 an hour. That number in this model is now projected at $13 an hour. That exceeds normal inflation over that period, but that's what we're seeing in terms of part-time work. And so that's another reason why the recovery rate remained at about the same, but it's a little bit larger of a gap than it was in the previous model. The other piece of this, and the recovery rate could go up, but this was a decision of the planning committee. The original model had a fitness center in that scenario or strategy. Right now, this plan does not have a fitness center, and fitness centers drive, in community centers, fitness centers drive membership. You can charge a little bit more for the membership, and they also will attract more individuals. But the planning committee and some members of the council requested so that we not compete directly with a private provider of fitness activities in the community, that was not in this model any longer. So your recovery rate would improve if you had 5,000 to 10,000 square feet of fitness space in the building, but that's been a decision at this point that was made by the planning committee. So we're not competing directly with private providers. So with that, we're ready to take any and all of your questions, and I can flip back to.
I've got 2 slides.
Sure.
Mayor or Tyler, when it talks about a total project budget of $25 million, that's under the assumption that we're able to bond out $30 million, correct? And have 5 for soccer and 25 for aquatic and community center.
That is correct.
Okay.
No? We had 25 million. I thought we had a $30 million bond project, 25 million for the pool and $5 million for the soccer.
To get 25 million in project costs, it's going to have to be about a 32 or 33 million dollar bond issue.
Okay.
We've also talked about having 30 million project costs, and then your issue is going to be, in that higher $30 million range.
I understand that, but all along we've been talking about 25 and 5, 30 million.
This is just 25.
How much can we bond out?
We could do 30. 30 project costs. So the bond issue itself would be probably 38, and the debt service on that is projected at 1.75 million a year.
Okay, so I guess, let me re-ask my question. I think you gave me the answer I wanted. If the bond issue passes, we will have available for soccer up to 5 million and available for the aquatic community center up to 25 million. If we go for 38 million in a bond issue.
Yes.
I thought that was what I said. I could
be wrong. I just want to make sure. I don't care.
Did everybody understand?
I mean, I'm not saying I don't care, but it doesn't matter the bond issue amount as long as we're left after fees and all this stuff. As long as we're left with $30 million of spendable money for up to $5 million for soccer,
correct.
25 million for.
Right. I was not including the
Okay.
the actual bond itself.
When I asked that wrong, I assume we'd bound out 30 million, but as long as we have 30 million usable proceeds.
Right. I was just trying to clarify because we've still got about 6.7, I think, outstanding.
Yeah, we've got to pay the other one off. That's right.
That's got to be
right.
paid off, and then
Okay.
we've got fees on top of that.
Okay, perfect.
And
Thank
the
you.
source of that revenue, Tyler, is coming from where
A&P revenue.
only?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Could we go back to the slides on the projected cost?
Oh, I have one more thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dave.
I'm sorry. I may miss this. I'm on the no property cost, budget available for renovation. If we're not buying the property, what are we renovating?
We wouldn't be.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It was the idea that the cost of, you're still buying it. It was just the model when we originally did this. We didn't know where the money was coming. If it was coming from the bond issue to buy the building. That was all.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Would you go back to the projection, Carl? And I can see though. I can see it right here. Was the is that the cost of? Did you figure in utilities on this as well?
Yeah, this has everything. They're a little hard to read, but in the revenue, it's mostly it's from the general fees that you get. There are also programs, which are things like the special tournaments, and then there's some other miscellaneous. That's the 8%. But you can see basically between the part-time, we separated part-time from full-time, but you can see that that's 60% of the cost. And then the commodities are the things you buy, to run the facility, things like chlorine. And then the contractual ones, that's where we have the utilities and other things that support the basic operation of the building.
Okay, thank you.
So in the fees, do you have a sample fee structure of like just a normal family wanting to use it that lives in the city, a family who doesn't live in the city? How much if the Conway High School wants to use it for practice, how much we would charge them for that? How much we would charge for tournaments, how much we would?
Yes,
Yeah.
we have a very detailed document that backs this up that has all of those things. The only thing we did not do was put in any fee generated from the high school use of the facility. That's an option, of course, for the council to decide how they want to do that. And in fact, all fees are subject to your review and decision about at what level, what level fees, how much recovery. Community centers can recover every bit of their cost. They just have to charge more.
Right,
That's really all it is.
And I guess, the one area that I think most concerned about or most interested in is, a typical family of 4 or 5 who wants to bring their kids and come every summer, every day during the summer, and they live in the city, how much are they going to have to pay? Either per day, or is it an annual membership, or?
That's also up to council and Park and Recs to
I guess
determine the structure.
yeah,
In terms of our model,
Yes.
We basically inflated the model that had been done in the original report. So it has a whole series, families. There are also there are discounts for families that can't afford a regular membership. There are day passes. There are just passes for the outdoor pool.
Right.
There are passes for the indoor pool. There are passes for
ballpark for a family would be what?
I really don't remember. I'd have to pull it up and look.
Okay, is that something
It's
we can
buried
get?
somewhere in all the detail,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
looked at it yesterday and I just don't remember. I don't want to misquote the number, but it's less than if you were to generally belong to a YMCA or a private provider. We do know that. I mean, I can remember that from looking at it yesterday.
So I pay $40 a month right now to swim at Hendricks.
So you would probably pay less than that in the model now. Now, I don't know
For the
about
outdoor.
your family status, whether it includes a spouse,
Just me.
children. If it's just you, yeah, I don't remember, but I don't believe it's that high.
And that would be for anything up there? Or just?
Oh, yeah, that's the other, this is not just for swimming. This is generally, now, some, again, it's entirely up to you in terms of the model, the pricing structure you want to develop. Some do have, very unique, 5 passes, monthly passes, punch cards. There are lots of different strategies. One can be, I'm only going to swim, so I get a special swim pass only.
Right.
But then we have to make sure that you don't sneak into a aerobics class or a Pilates class. But there's a whole,
Well, and
that
I
all
guess-
gets worked out in the end, but it's
Yeah,
a matter
I
of
want
how
this
you
to
want to
be-
price it too.
I want this to be affordable for
Right,
families
yeah.
to use. That's kind of my bottom line. And when I see, a $700,000 hit on the general fund, plus losing 100 and some thousand of airport revenue, which would then have to come out of the general fund, that's a big hit in every year from moving forward. So, from now on, right?
Yeah.
So that's just what I'm just trying to wrap my head around.
Right. No, we can
How we modeled that.
we can provide you with all that
Because I might
information
want it
if
to
you'd
be
like.
less. and that makes a bigger difference.
Right,
So,
and no,
yeah.
and I mean, that's, and we do these revenue and expense projections often where, you know, the first, the first request of council is, I want it to break even. And then you show the pricing structure and all of a sudden it's, you know, it's 40, it's 60, a family rate is $800 or $900 for a year, you know, and then that's when councils most often say, okay, let's, you know, pull this back a little bit, knowing that you're going to be operating at potentially at a deficit at that point.
And I think and I can't remember who mentioned this, that we'd have 20 to 25 events a year potentially. Is that for
That's
the indoor
potentially
facility?
that's potentially just for an indoor competition for swimming.
Okay. Are
you know,
there
whether
that
it's
many competitions that would generate revenue for us in the state right now?
Actually, those kinds of competitions typically don't make a lot of money. You make your money from your outdoor pool. That summer season of almost 4 months covers most of the rest of your indoor cost. You make money off the indoor recreation pool. You don't make much money off of the competitions, but they are a service to the community, so to speak. So they're part of the plan.
Yeah, I guess I went out and looked just to see how many competitions there were in Arkansas. There's some in Northwest Arkansas, some in Little Rock, some in Benton, I think, maybe. And those, I mean, I think there were probably 10 or 12.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that.
Right.
And so it just didn't seem like there were 20 to 25 potential competitions that we could host there.
That's also
They won't all come here.
right,
anyways.
and again, that's also you know, our suggestion always is, you know, your pool will be most successful depending on the quality of the aquatic manager that manages the pool. The better they are, the better they're trained, the better experience they've had, the better they are at marketing, you know, the better the pools will do. You have the potential perhaps to bring in as many as 20, 25 swimming competitions. They
is
might
that-
be just dual high school meets.
Yeah.
They might be just masters swim meets.
So is that built into the revenue model? 20 to 25?
I believe
Events?
so, but
Okay.
again, they don't. We're talking about those events generating, you know, $1,000 or less. They're not the money makers now. A
Yeah, we need
3-day
700 of those.
Yeah, right, exactly. A 3-day pickleball, a 3-day weekend volleyball tournament with 40 to 80 teams cycling through.
So it's not just swimming. It's,
Oh, yeah. No,
okay,
I was,
okay,
I'm
okay,
sorry, I was only speaking
okay,
about
okay.
swimming
That helps
competitions. Oh, no, you still have the ability to have all kinds of other tournaments. And in fact, those, because of the participation counts are much larger, they can potentially generate a lot more income.
Do you have a example of a community that is our size? Government says it's just under 70,000 right now. That y'all have built a center like this for, an aquatic center. Of how many families actually use this in the course of a year? Do you have any information like that?
We could get some. Yeah, we're
I'd like to know what that number is.
yeah.
'Cause,
We can also look at the projections that were in the revenue because it's a predictor, and it was also based on the original report that did the public surveying to get an idea. But you know, statistically, that report, which is very similar to the reports that we do, look at the demographics of a community. And we have national statistics that then within a population, let's say of 50,000, it'll tell us how many people swim regularly, how many walk, how many lift weights. You know, it's pretty interesting data. It's the Sporting Good Manufacturers Association that puts that information together every year because, of course, what do? They sell balls and bats and tennis rackets. And so, yes, we could find some examples like that so you could see what the kind of regular membership is.
Now, following up on that, as you look at your operational cost here, that not only includes swimming, but it includes everything else that goes into it. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, this is, everything.
So
This
we're not
is-
talking about just swimming, okay? there's some other.
Right, and
income
then the rental
generators
for the
here.
party rooms and whatever.
There are
Right.
income
Yeah, all of
generators here.
that kind of, yeah. So I guess I'd be curious, and I'd really like to see kind of what's behind
sure.
those two pie charts.
What I'd like to see is the same thing. One, I changed my mind, put a workout facility back in, put about 4 or 5 of them in there, actually, if it's going to bring more revenue. But I'd like to see what makes up both of those pie charts, see what components generate the most, what components cost the most, so we can have a better understanding of how that works.
It's not by component, well, I guess you could look at it in that detail.
Well, I mean-
It's on the expense, it's really on the revenue side where we're predicting the number of tournaments for pickleball, volleyball,
that would
swimming.
be a
Yeah,
great start.
That is in there.
That'd be fine.
And again, it's a best guess, but it is a
Well, it's a
professional.
start.
yeah.
And just so we know where we're starting, then we can figure out where we can.
I will say it's based on the plan as it's designed, rather than being kind of a generic model. It's looking at what the staffing requirements would need to be and what the potential is based on the size of the different components, what they could also, what they could earn or what revenue they could gain.
Now, the staffing has already been factored into your expense number, is that correct?
I'm sorry, which?
Your staffing has already been factored into
Oh,
your
yeah,
expense
yeah.
number?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And we were instructed, there's no existing staff technically that you have in Park and Recs that are in this projection. So this is all new people running a completely new facility. So, depending on how you ultimately end up, it might be 1 or 2 people because you have other members in the community, in your Park and Rec staff. But as of right now, the projections are based on, and I think it's, again, I should have copied it out. I'm sorry, I didn't. I think it's 7 or 8 permanent staff to run the building, full-time salaried staff, and then a whole slew of part-time. So mostly to run tournaments and mostly to be the outdoor lifeguards.
I know we were just looking at renderings and and I'm talking about the outdoor facility now. How many people will fit like in the lazy river at one time going around? Because I was counting, it looked like about 10, and that didn't seem big. So I think it's maybe not to scale. Yeah, what's the length of the?
I'm going to have to ask George.
Okay.
I would guess you can get a bunch of people. I've seen lazy rivers.
I mean, the
literally
the
packed so
floaties
much it
took up
looked
the whole
dangerous.
width. Yeah, so I was
But,
thinking
George?
it probably just wasn't to scale.
Yep. So most health codes will allow you to have 1 person for every 15 square feet of shallow water. We typically, and so a lazy river that is 300 feet long by 10 feet wide is roughly 3,000 square feet of water. So that would be 200. We typically take that 15 and boost it up to 25 to have more of a comfort level capacity. And then the same thing for the shallow water leisure pool. If you're looking at a 4,000 square foot leisure pool, you could technically fit, 150 to 250 people in the water at any given time. So there is, great capacity. And then, as I mentioned earlier, you'll end up having about half in the water, half out of the water at any given time. But yeah, that lazy river could technically hold, upwards of 200 people. That would be squeezed a bit. So you'd probably want to limit it, and usually that'll happen just naturally. People will see that if it's too crowded, they'll go over to the leisure pool or go over to the slide tower.
Right. And hours of operation, do you see it open, like days of operation? Is this operating 10 months of the year, the outdoor part?
Yep. So for the outdoor pool, the historical season is Memorial Day to Labor Day, so about a 100-day season. Here,
It stays warm.
yeah, with your climate, you could easily do weekends starting May the 1st through weekends in the end of September. A lot of that is just dictated by staffing, and then once high school football starts up and fall baseball and fall soccer, people get a little bit busier and swimming goes to the back of their mind. But we would, typically see that mid-May to mid-September model. And then for the indoor pool, that's obviously going to be 360 days out of the year, early morning to water walking in the morning. So there's usually different varied schedules for the warmer water pool.
What's the depth of the lap pool, the competition pool?
Right now, we'd assume that to be 3.5 to 4 feet at the shallow end, and then sloping down to 11.5 to 12.5 feet for the 1 meter and or 3 meter diving.
So there is a 3-meter dive?
We have not determined that. It was brought up in one of our meetings. At first, we had assumed 1 meter, but that's probably still a to be determined at this point.
I only heard a 1 meter mentioned earlier is the reason I.
Yeah, so I think right now we're planning on 1 meter, but we did hear from the community that a 3 meter might be preferred as well.
We showed a 3 meter in one of the hearings.
Is there any advantage to trying to heat the outdoor pool to provide a couple of extra months of use? Is the cost to heat the outdoor pool worth the expense is basically what I'm trying to ask.
Yep. Yeah, typically we find that it's not. If it was an outdoor lap pool, then maybe, but with the amount of square footage of water and then the times of use, with school schedules and all of that, it's typically not cost effective to do that.
Thank you.
Shelley, you guys were talking, or you specifically were talking about cost. When we went to Bentonville, I do have actually, they gave us for the full year of 2019, all of the information on that for full operating years. So I do have that I can share with you. And then they also gave us their rate structure for the amenities based on a resident and non-resident. So I do have that I can share with you as well.
Their monthly usage, I'm just curious how many folks use this in the cold weather months.
And Bentonville did not have the outside. Theirs was all strictly
the
inside.
inside,
Yeah.
inside.
No, basically, I could probably touch bases with them and get that, but what they gave us was the report for the full year for 2019.
If you would ask if you could break that down monthly, I'm just curious on
Okay.
the usage and like you said, football starts up and fall baseball starts up and it gets cold, and the people that can use the outside amenities, a lot of them won't use the inside. I'm just curious what their usage looks like.
Okay,
And
yeah,
how-
I'll be glad to reach out to
I'm
them.
sorry, how do we compare in size to theirs, Miss Isby?
I'm trying to
You mean
think.
size of the facility? or
The facility?
population?
This is the aquatics part of it specifically.
I'm trying to see if there's had anything on here that gave specific.
We could also, for the ones you toured, we can easily reach back to them and ask them about membership. I would probably suggest membership levels from 19, not 20 because of COVID.
Right.
And I'm thinking, for a few that are in the St. Louis market, they range from memberships between, and sizes not 140,000 square feet, but those kind of in the 75,000 range. And they regularly have between 2,500 and 3,500 members, which drives a fairly significant amount of revenue.
Yeah.
That would be that would certainly, I would hope. Again, it's about how you market.
Sure.
It's about how how long it's open, what things you offer.
And I guess I'd be curious too, and maybe Steve knows this, or you could get it from some of the other facilities. How much do they charge to host a meet?
Yeah.
How much do they charge for a pickleball tournament? How much do they charge for a volleyball tournament? How much do they charge for a party room? Just to see. Again, we want to.
Okay.
I want it to be affordable for
Right.
the people who live here.
Council, any more questions?
Could you take your 25-meter number for your indoor competition pool and double it for a 50-meter one?
You mean at a later date, as in a phased approach, or just
Today.
I've shared at the public public meetings that when you make that jump to the 50 meter, that would pretty much use all of the construction budget available, actually exceed what you have available.
Was not the question.
Oh,
The question is, what would it cost?
what would it cost? Well, we just bid a 50 meter indoor pool.
That's what I need to know.
And it was $25 million, and that was construction. So the total project cost for that project was like $32 million. And that is it doesn't have any of the other indoor activity space, meeting rooms, multipurpose rooms, pickleball courts. It was just an aquatic center. It did have 1,000 seats, because typically if you're going to invest in a 50 meter facility like that, you might as well invest in the seating, but when you invest in the seating, then you have to have all the support areas. So the only other activity space in the project we just bid was a fitness center for the teams that use it. Otherwise, it was just a pool.
Where's the nearest 50-meter pool to Conway, Arkansas?
George would know that more than I would. There might be somebody in the audience. Arkansas, University of Arkansas.
They have 50? Okay. Anywhere else in Arkansas?
There's a couple other just in talking with the Circuit League. I think that we determined there was probably 3 to 4 indoor and a few outdoor 50-meter pools.
What does that allow you to do that you can't do in a 25?
So it's really, the answer is twofold. So the first is you can do the long course events, the Olympic events. And so that's long course season for USA Swimming is going to be late April to end of July, first part of August. It also, and the bigger benefit of the 50-meter pool is that it gives you added daily lane capacity. And so you get 20 to, or 17 to 22 short course 25-yard lanes, as opposed to, an 8-lane 25-yard pool. And so that's where the twofold benefit of that 50-meter pool comes in. You can do those long course events, but then you can also, you have that daily capacity. You can also, most of the 50-meter pools that we do will have at least one bulkhead, if not 2. And so you can do 2 8-lane 25-yard courses. So you can, host a good number of the USA Swimming events like sectionals and zones, because you have warm up and cool down space, plus you have, 2 8-lane competition courses.
How many people show up to those events?
It depends. Sectionals and zones, those are ones that are more regional in nature. And so you could get anywhere from, 600 to 1,000 swimmers that are coming in from across the region. And then USA Swimming has, as Eric mentioned, they have certain criteria on the number of spectator seats that is required. You have to have warm up and cool down space. Sometimes if you do a long course event, you have to have a minimum of 6 or 8 lanes, warm up or cool down. And then even your localized meets, those meets can still bring in, 300 to 500 swimmers. If you're doing a short course, invitational, that brings people in from 90 minutes to 2.5 hours away, you could easily bring 300 to 500 swimmers in.
Thank you. Ms. Isby, when we have A&P meetings, we talk about the number of people that show up to events, and we talk about the number of people that come to see the little ones play ball. And we have mothers and fathers and aunts and uncles and grandmothers and grandfathers. So when you say, how many people would participate?
In between, 300 to 500 swimmers for, some of the invitationals, and then the sectionals and zones meets, those are harder to get. It's once a year. They have a short course and then they have a long course championship meet, and then typically they're on a staggered schedule from various pools. So you might only get those meets, once every every 3 to 5 years, just depending upon the rotation. But those can bring in upwards of 800 to 1,000 swimmers.
Just swimmers.
Yep.
Thank you.
And then a travel party of 2.5 per swimmer, something like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
That's all I had.
Council, any more questions?
Well, I want to make sure we publicly thank Alderman Isby for all of your work and effort steering this project, because believe me, we know and understand.
Well,
all the work
I've
you put in.
had a great committee, and I think, well, of course, with my city group, which is Steve and all of the city people that you see there. And then I also have one of my committee members. I think we just have one committee member here tonight, Melissa Troop, and she went on the benchmarking trips with us as well. So it's definitely not just my baby.
Thank you. Melissa, thank you very much for going on those. I appreciate that.
And she has been a wonderful resource in regards to the communication between what we're doing along with the swim committee, because she's involved with them. I think she's the only one, like I said, that's here tonight, but it's been a very, very good group. So thanks to my team.
Thank you, Ms. Isby, Melissa, and Felicia, and everyone. Thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor, what's kind of our next steps with
Next step will be for you to take this information that you've got tonight with the packets, and we'll be sure that everybody's got that. Take a look at that, kind of figure out what our next steps will be, if there will be any. We have a council, we had on the council agenda for next Tuesday to see if we're going to pick our date and go forward with it, or if we want to peel back from that. So there's a lot of information that's going to have to be looked at the next week.
So with the bond issue, how broad can the description be? Can it say it would be for a facility that includes aquatics and pickleball and volleyball not to exceed $25 million? Is that enough detail?
I can't answer that. That is a Gordon Welburn question. I can get you that answer.
And then $5 million for.
You know she's after Felicia? Okay. We'll call Gordon tomorrow.
Yeah.
And get that information.
And I'll go ahead and make the call to Bentonville and work on that information that you had asked for as well. I think we should be able to get that fairly quickly.
Good.
Yeah, and any of the numbers behind the two pie charts, just so we can just have a sense of. I just see, well, we'll wait and see. So
Mr. Winningham, could I ask a question or two of you, please, sir? Thank you. You said that the money that we're proposing to use for this project is coming from the Advertising and Promotions Commission. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We also have money that is helping to rebuild and to overlay our streets right now. Is that correct? That
The
is
3/8 cent sales tax.
How long does that run for? How much longer? Because that had a sunset on it, as I remember.
2023.
July of 2023. Does that sound right?
July of 23? Is that right? Okay. Very good.
Yeah, I think July will be the last month we get it. Technically, the tax will stop March 31st.
Okay. Stops about April 1st. But it runs a year longer than I thought. For some reason, I had 2022 in my mind.
Yes, sir. It went into effect in 2018, and it was a 5-year.
And that's 3/8?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And tell me about the A&P money. Tell me where that's going to come from.
So there is a 2-cent tax in the city on prepared food, and then there's also a 2-cent tax when you stay at a hotel. The city does not get any of the hotel tax, but we get 1 3/4 of the 2 cents of the prepared food tax, and the other 1/4 cent remains with the A&P Commission to be used how they wish to use it.
I should have that information with me, and I apologize that I don't. Can you tell me what that 2 cents on each one of those brings in to the city?
I think this year we're going to hit $4 million on the 1 3/4 prepared food tax to the city. Generally, the hotel tax runs at about 10% of that. Okay. So I don't see the hotel numbers, but last time I looked at them, They're about 10% of what the food brings in. So if we hit 4 million, I would expect hotel maybe hit 400,000, but COVID also threw a pretty big wrench into hotel, how much hotels are rented.
And if we end up doing this, we're talking about a bond issue, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And for how long?
30 years.
30? Okay. So $1 million and how much a year from restaurants? $1.7 million?
$1.7 million was the debt service.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So if we do hit 4 million and 1.75 is debt service, we'll have about 2.25 available still for annual parks projects.
Just trying to get these numbers in my head. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Council, any other questions? Hey, Tyler, if you would, send the council a breakdown of the A&P numbers, what you just explained. Thank you. Okay, council, I guess that's all we have tonight. There's no decisions going to be made tonight. Well, we've had public meetings on this, and we've also had folks turning in emails and things like that. So really tonight, this is for Craft and Toll to present to the council. All right, council, with that, I'll take a motion. We don't have to have a motion, do we? Yeah, we're adjourned.